The first time that I saw something that I was a part of changed that. The first time that the tap went on right in the middle of that camp and clean water came out and those kids didn't have to walk 5 hours to get water anymore, it changed my life forever. And then I moved to another UN no-go zone. I met these guys, the SLA. Being a bartender, one of the great assets that we have is the ability to create relationships with people. And I've always been told that whoever has the most and the biggest guns, those are the ones that you want to befriend. So I became friends with those guys, and then another life-changing moment happened when I met him. His name is Mustafa. In this picture, he's 12 years old. He's been fighting with the SLA since he was 9. His entire family was killed by the Sudanese government and the Janjaweed, leaving him all alone. And what's a 9-year-old to do in the desert all alone where most of his family and his village was killed? He took up arms and began fighting with the SLA. And I remember I was sitting with the guys in the previous slide, and I remember sitting down with this commander eating a goat we had just slaughtered. And I asked him, I said, what are y'all afraid of, man? You guys are hardcore. I mean, look at this picture, for God's sakes. What is it that intimidates you, that you're afraid of? Something, man. Because almost every day these guys are fighting, you know, little skirmishes here and there with the government and the Janjaweed. And he actually got quiet for a minute. And he looked over at Mustafa, who was sitting by himself, smoking the last bit of a butt of a cigarette, which all the soldiers gave him the very last drag. He was smoking a bit of a cigarette, and he said, you know, our biggest threat, biggest worry to me is that the little ones like Mustafa and younger aren't going to make it past the diarrhea that they've had for the last few weeks because of our water source and the cholera outbreak we've just had. And my children aren't going to survive because they can't get over their diarrheal disease. Here's a guy that's one of the hardest core men I've ever met in my entire life, and he was more concerned and worried about their water than the fighting that he was going to see the next day. That's what I was exposed to my first year in this. That's what it took to take an ordinary guy and move him to do extraordinary things. Right after Darfur, I remembered, I looked back over the year that I was there, and some of the things that I saw the larger multi-million-dollar organizations doing, I knew that I couldn't do those things because I didn't have hundreds of millions of dollars. I couldn't buy a multi-million-dollar drill rig and go pump $10,000 wells in the ground. And so in Darfur, I began learning to fix water sources using local materials, local people, using sustainable methods. So the next place that I went is right here. This is in Ethiopia. I met a group of guys there who made a drilling machine out of old Land Cruiser parts. That thing that I'm holding right there, that's an axle, okay? And the bottom drill bit's made out of some other part, and they pieced it together, and there's about 8 guys that sit in the back, and they pound a hole in the ground all day long until they hit water, and they move to the next spot. It costs a few $100s to put in a well like that. I'll get to this picture in a minute. Then we moved to an area in Cambodia. I actually just got back from there. I'm a little bit weak and shaky. I spent 2 weeks in Cambodia, and so my times are like exact opposite right now. So I'm still a little jet lagged. But in Cambodia, I met a local guy there who in 2007, when we began drilling wells with him, and I didn't actually think Cambodia had that much of a water need. You look at the pictures of East Africa, those desert pictures and all that kind of stuff, and you can see that there's a need for that because they walk hours upon hours to get their water. But in Cambodia, come on, I mean, it's rice fields, water everywhere, right? And Cambodia is one of the worst places in the world for water. 80% of their deaths, that's including old age, that's including getting hit by a car, that's including cancer, anything. 80% of the deaths in Cambodia are directly related to their water. It's poison. So I met a guy in 2007. We began drilling wells for $2,500 using outside drilling rigs and some equipment that we could find. And then in 2008, we got a little better. We pieced together our own drilling machine using local materials and an old beat-up tractor. And then instead of using the pumps provided by UNICEF like everybody else did, which cost $200-300, we began to make our own pumps out of the local materials as well, blue PVC pipe that actually lasts just as long as the other ones. And we got our costs down by 5 times. Less than $500 we can drill a well now in Cambodia. We've drilled over 150 wells now. This picture here, I actually went from Cambodia, went straight to Haiti for the last 2 days. Was there till, I think yesterday or the day before. So I just came from there. And there is where we get to this guy. So after the earthquake in Haiti, I was actually in northern Uganda when the earthquake hit, and I remember not knowing how bad it was until I was finally at this one spot that had CNN like fuzzy in the background, and I saw like possibly more than 100,000 killed. And I saw like Anderson Cooper running out with some bloody kid and how just the mayhem from it. And I was like, well, man, I need to be there. Uganda, you know, our guys are doing well. That's where I need to be. So I flew to Uganda, and I almost threw up when I hit the ground, not because of the smell, which was terrible, not because of the things that I saw, which were also terrible, but because I saw what our response as a West was to the water crisis after the earthquake. We began flying in and shipping in hundreds of millions of bottled water. And y'all may be thinking, well, what's the big deal? It's clean water, right? Right? If that's all the fix that we got, right. Okay. But now that I've gone back quite a few times since then, I can't hardly even see the port when I go across that port road because of the mountains of smoldering plastic trash that we've sent down thinking, yeah, that's a great Band-Aid fix for them. But now they're right back to where they were because they've drank in those hundreds of millions of bottles of water, and they're right back to where they were. So we began working through a partner on the ground in the Dominican Republic. This lady's she's a genius. She figured out a way, she was a potter, figured out a way to take a clay pot and make it a water filter using local materials, clay there available on the island, fine-grained sawdust mixed in with the clay so that in the firing process that sawdust burns up and leaves small, tiny, porous holes in the clay. And then the most important ingredient that's also mixed in with the clay process before it's fired is molecular silver. And I'm not a genius. I'm not like Randy, who's like a really, really smart mathematician. But I know from doing some research that silver ionizes particles that are around it, and so the bacteria, the parasites, and those types of things are rendered useless once it passes through that silver. And so here we have a filter that costs us less than $30 that I can give to a family like this one right here that was just been given bottled water upon bottled water until they ran out and then had to go back to drinking water from the street. I can give them this, and her entire family is going to be okay for the next 5 years. They could take crap water off the street if they'd like from whatever last rainstorm or whatever, or from the nearest creek, and put it in here. And just to show you, I have two kids, which makes my passion even more than it was. I got this water on the way here on the side of the highway. I'm in Boone, and I was hauling butt to get here early. But I stopped to grab some water off the highway. Not the best water. And put it in here a little bit ago before I got started. Put it in the top. Not only will I drink this myself, because I wouldn't want her to be giving that to her children, but I would also give this to my own. Y'all, I'm honored to be here today. Thank you so much for having me.